like to hear from Indonesia and Vietnam how the pandemic has affected the farmers at origin. So I'd like to give the floor first to Pak Shafruddin. Would you like to take the floor and give us like a couple of minutes on how the pandemic has affected Indonesia?
All right. Thank you, Chita. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon for the audience, which I saw here from almost all the ASEAN countries. Good afternoon for especially Pak Surip Mawardi, who's also on the attending list. All right. As you know, Indonesia is the fourth biggest countries of world's coffee producers. We already start with Sumatra coffee harvest this last 3 months, which is now almost at the end of crops, and we will continue the next 2 months of the main crops. While the other regions, Java, Bali, Flores, Toraja, Sulawesi, and Papua, even the 2 new areas, Lombok and Sumbawa, with this start will be in the next few weeks. You can imagine on these conditions, with a lot of supply of coffee, but the situation all over the world due to the pandemic, we are in the suffer of a market of coffee, not even for export side, but also in the inside our local consumptions also very sour, very low, at least 80% go down, because as you know, a lot of coffee shop was closed. A lot of coffee shop cannot apply as dine-in for the customer, only serve online and only solve the takeaway. But that's not enough. That's why I say this time is really the innovation of marketing we need to absorb. We need to take by the coffee farmers, by the coffee industries, also by the government to help out of this pandemic. I think that's for a while. Chita, your time.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Shaf. Now, Mr. Myoe from Myanmar, since you've been going into specialty coffee, how has the pandemic affected your farmers in Myanmar?
Like as other countries, our country also affected by the pandemic to the specialty coffee farmers and also to our stakeholder coffee industry. Our harvest season and production is finished in start from December to March and April, so we are ready to export. So we have some kind of a contract already we have, but some order maybe because of the pandemic in our market, such like United States and some of EU country, they may reduce their order or something like that. Also demand is we are affected. Also in domestic consumption, also like other country, the coffee shop are affected. Like sales are go around 80%. So because of like other country, the only delivery service and online selling also along. But we expect that maybe next month we can lift up this restriction. So I think the
cafes can go back to business.
Yeah. So I think this production of previous season current season is we already produced. But if we we are affected by the pandemic in next season, because if our farmer cannot sell our specialty coffee, also as well as in export, as well as in local market, they have a shortage in their imports for next productions. So we are trying to solve this problem. We all of our Myanmar Coffee Association and members, we trying to get more market linkage, something like Europe market, and also more to ASEAN country. For the time being, we are only to more to Thailand through border. So we expect the ASEAN Coffee Federation can cooperate and help us to get more this kind of this market linkage. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Myo Ai.
Yeah.
Mr. Charon, how is Thailand doing with your farmers this time of the pandemic?
Good afternoon, everyone. For the Thailand with the coffee farmers, at the beginning, there's two things happen with the pandemic. At the beginning, when there's a concern about the logistics, when the government said they maybe intend to lock down, right? So the factory, they're concerned about the logistics. So it happened to be, they asked the farmer to ship earlier. Yeah, so what's happening is once the coffee already harvested, most of the factory ask the farmers or the traders to ship the green beans to the factories. But that is only, and after that, once the government said there's a lockdown the whole country, then it have a great impact on the cafe, the restaurant, or the hotels, and it is pretty much similar to the others country. Like the demand, it drops more than 70 to almost 80%. Then there's with the farmers, they already delivered most of the coffee. So there's not much impact within this season. But for the next year, since the coffee is a very labor-intensive industrial, so we also worried about like if they cannot find the workers to harvest, or even for doing the post-harvest, it will impact both quantity and the quality of the next coffee season. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Mr. Vin, how is Vietnam? Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you read about the report from the ICO, you know that we call about the big pandemic. It's not very big. It's big, very big. It's not only for the Asian countries, Vietnam, and the other countries of the world. So the ICO, ICO also issued about the report for the market. They focus on about the supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
The report in a analysis that, if the analysis of about the 20 countries, who is now cover 71% of the demand of the coffee on the world. An analysis is 20 countries, very big countries. So now they concentrate about if the reduce about the GDP for the country 1%, the demand of the coffee on the world will be reduced about the 0.95%. This is about, I think, it's about the pandemic will affecting to the other countries, especially for the coffee, the growing coffee. This is in a war, and in Vietnam, now the debit the pandemic affecting to and now, it's not only the farmers, producers, and also traders and roasters in Vietnam. You know, now the crop in 2019 or 20 in Vietnam will be reduced about the 20% for the crop against the last crop. The price is now decreased the 6 to 10% in Vietnam, right? You know about all the countries who now growing the coffee, the price, international price, and also the domestic price is now reduced. This very difficulty for the farmers. Now the price, domestic price is now the under productive price.
The production price.
The production. The
Thank you,
production price.
Mr. Vin.
So
Thank you.
now, okay.
Okay, we'll go back to that later. So since you started discussing prices, I wanted to ask Mr. Chris Leo, also with Ecom, to tell us how will this affect ASEAN coffee prices, particularly Vietnam and Indonesia, you know, as compared to world market prices. If Mr. Vin is saying that the prices are now dipping, what do you see in the next year or so? Like everybody is talking about December 2021 already. So between now and December 2021, how do you see prices of coffee falling or going up, Chris?
Looking at the situation right now, we based on Arabica, for example, we are looking at about 100 to 115 cents. But at this present moment, you look at it, it was a very wide number. But always remember, Brazil harvest is going to be a very bullish this time. Okay, they have going to be a huge number. But the problem right now is that nobody know whether would there be have enough picker to pick this upcoming crop, or would there be a lot of pickers that would be rushing in to pick the next harvest. Because as you look at it right now, Brazilian real is at one of the highest right now against US dollar of 5.7 real versus $1 US. So this is going to be a very situation, a very bad situation to look at for the world market. Brazil, we take Brazil as a very, all of us know that Brazil is the biggest pollution country. Everybody wanted to sell right now. They wanted to sell. So, but with that coming into the market, what is going to happen to the Central Americas, to the African? Because you know that with Central Americas coming in now, almost end of the crop, Brazil is coming in, and they are very happily to do the wash coffee. This is going to be what is going to have impact on the Central America mouth. With the pandemic situation going to persist at least for the next 6 months, we believe that Brazil price is going to be coming down very strongly, basically because of the Brazil real. So what is going to happen that we think that the market will be very badly hit with this upcoming big crop from Brazil. But we are not so sure what is going to happen to the Asian market. But based on, as you know, that based on the market situation right now, all the people, the buyers, the roaster, the trade house are looking at the London as well as the New York, which is based on the US dollar to trade. So if Asia is going to come in strongly again, coming end of the year, like for Vietnam itself, like what Mr. Vin have said that it's going to reduce by 20%, how is it going to affect the Asian market? This is the big question right now. And secondly, everybody know that there's a shortage of containers coming in from Africa country, from Central Americas, from Vietnam. So this would be a good advantage for us as an ASEAN country to be able to ship more.
You're saying, Chris, that maybe it's an opportunity for
Yes.
ASEAN
Yes.
to ship to each other rather than outside our region.
Definitely. because you know that we have enough of empty containers within this region, and we don't have a lot of export movement right now. So we can take opportunity of this situation to ship, to market our coffee, our ASEAN coffee, to the Asia region and maybe to Europe on the next step.
Okay. Victor, how is it with Malaysia?
Asia, we are a country that more consuming coffee rather than our productions. In Malaysia East, we have the Sabah Arabica, the Sabah Arabica coffee. We are still in the very, very beginning stage and very, very micro. The production is like 10K per year only. So I don't think it's very badly impacted on the on these pandemic times.
No, but maybe what I should ask you is, will you be importing still from the faraway countries of origin?
Okay. So if your question is like the Latin America and the Africans, if we importing, based on the Malaysia, and even though I think a lot of countries, we are still importing, a lot of roasters still importing, that's for sure. In that terms, because of the marketings, and the trend or the wave of the cafe concept. So they prefer Africans, especially firstly as a birthplace of coffee, and secondly is the fragrance and aroma or the flavors that you can find in African's coffee. So a lot of African's coffee everywhere in the world, in Malaysia, Singapore, even Taiwan. So the thing is like it's educated by all the educations, academic, and all these. This is the trends of filter coffee, especially. But for those ASEAN coffee that we imported for as a roasters or in the company that produce coffee, roasted coffee, mainly is because of the body of the ASEAN coffee, the bodiness, so that it creates more profiling on the espresso base. You get more body, you get more chocolatey, that types of flavor profile. So it very depends. If in terms of the numbers, I don't think as a coffee roaster, we will still import African's coffee, but not in very, very big quantity. But we will import more into like espresso-based coffee, even in Indonesia coffee more. For myself, we import a lot of Indonesians and Vietnam Arabica as well.
Okay, that's good to know that Malaysia, of course, they pay higher, and the spending power of Malaysia, I think, is very good. So you might explore some other ASEAN coffees.
Yeah, and also in Malaysia, I think Malaysia and Singapore, we have not only the gourmet side or specialty side of coffee, we have also the traditional kopitiam coffee. In Malaysia, especially in northern Malaysia, we import a lot of Lampung, Indonesia, for that the traditional coffee, kopi or coffee.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Manny, maybe you should tell them from the cafe chain side and also on the roasting side from the Philippines.
Good afternoon, everyone. From the Philippines, we have seen a lot of home consumption of coffee since the pandemic broke out. There's been a lot of home consumption of roast and ground coffee, and the particular direction has been a lot of homegrown specialty coffee from our growing areas up north in Benguet, Sagada, and down south in Bukidnon. So we have had a lot of interest for local coffee since it's been in-house consumption. A lot of people who can't go out rather would brew in their houses. And what we've seen also is a spike in consumption of 3-in-1 and instant coffee because of the convenience. People cannot go to cafes, so they go to the resort of just making their own coffee at home. And for people who are not into specialty or regular coffee, the consumption of instant and 3-in-1 has spiked. So we've seen this, and I think this will continue to go. You know, the Philippines is the biggest instant coffee market almost in the world. So you can
Yeah,
imagine the instant coffee that's being consumed. So we will consume more of the Robusta from Vietnam as well, because there are instant coffees. On the specialty side, as I said, we've concentrated in a lot of local specialty. And when the market comes back, I foresee that we'll be looking at more reasonably priced coffees from ASEAN, not really a lot of importation from Africa or from Central America, because people will be looking for reasonably priced coffee, especially the cafes, to recover a bit of the margins that they lost. So I'd see more Vietnamese and a lot of Indonesian Arabicas probably coming into the Philippines. You know, we import more or less 90% of our requirements. So that's a lot of coffee that's...
And to add to that, since I'm also representing the Philippine Coffee Board, I think there is a drive because 90% of our production is really Robusta. There is a drive to drum up on fine Robusta or the Robustas that are sold at a higher price because they're better quality, they were picked ripe, and different kinds of processing. So this is also an opportunity that other ASEAN countries, ASEAN producing countries might imitate or might replicate because it's working for the Philippines. Where Robusta used to sell for like probably $2, it's now selling for $3 and up per kilo. So, and some were quoting also $4 going to $5 on fine Robusta. So it might be something that our farmers can look into because with this pandemic, I think we have to be, as one of the panelists said, we have to be more creative or innovative in our approach to marketing our coffee. So there is a question in our chat box of people asking for suggestions on how they think government can help, or if any of your governments are giving you assistance, and maybe you can share so we can tell our government, like Paksiaf is the Indonesian government because coffee is one of your major exports. And of course, Mr. Vin might want to share what the government is doing to help farmers and roasters across the country. Paksiaf? Yes.
Yes, Chita. Indonesia's government really take concern about this pandemic affected on the coffee industry, especially for farmers, producers, the green bean. That's why from last few weeks, Indonesia's government is consistently, the opening or promoting the warehouse receive on the origin area. Also, SAI with the government's Department of Agriculture, Department of Industry, and also with other coffee association in Indonesia and cooperatives, we are open the coffee talk, the online coffee talk to promote the warehouse receive of coffee. This one of very important government involved. Also, government, especially on this coffee origin area, like in Aceh province, the governments support the farmers with the, to absorb the coffee beans, absorb the harvest product, to promote to the government's link of coffee sector. In Java, also the governments now open the new warehouse receive. This is very important. There are now in Indonesia, the warehouse receive is very important to receive the bigger quantity of coffee in order to help as a crash program in the pandemic era. That's the directly of the government's sector involved direct to the coffee sector on this pandemic. That's Chita.
Okay, thank you, Pak Chef. Mr.
No
Vin,
problem.
how is the Vietnam government?
The 3 months when the coffee price is down so much, and then the Vikufa will make another report to the price minister to support about the farmers and the traders, because now we have about the main farmers and the traders in the 5 provinces in the mountain areas, you know. And then the freezing the debt, you know, the farmer also have the debt. When you get about the money from the government, and they also have about the debt, and then the government will and the bank will make about the freezing debt, relax about the debt, and also especially for about the interest, you know now. But last time the interest of the banking interest is about the 7%. It's now down to about the 5%. And now yesterday we also making about the report to also about the government to continue to reduce about the interest, banking interest. Maybe they accept about the 5 to 6% per year, right, for the farmers and also for the traders, who is about the export about the coffee is from Vietnam. And another one, we call about our members in about the 20 traders, the big traders of the coffee in Vietnam, to export more about the soluble coffee, you know, coffee soluble, instant coffee.
Okay.
2-in-1 and also 3-in-1. Just now, yeah, I mentioned about the market is from Filipinos, right? Filipino is now the big market for the instant coffee, right? Now they cover about just now they cover about the 90%. Though Vietnam also export about the soluble coffee to the China. Now we change about the market to about the Filipinos, Asian countries. This is, I think, this is the best way for the Vietnam to export about the instant coffee to the Asian countries.
Thank you, Mr. Vin. So we can see that the way the producers are innovating is that they're looking for different markets. So Vietnam is looking more into the instant coffee, as the success of Indonesia also. Indonesia, we are importing a lot of instant coffee from you. One question that we had in the chat box was on the importation of seeds, if ACF could facilitate this. But I know that shipment of seeds, to my limited knowledge, is that it needs quarantine, etc. And so with this health pandemic, I think our departments of agriculture in our countries will not be so keen about bringing in any foreign seeds into our countries for now. In other words, all borders are kind of closed. In the Philippines, for example, when you enter our airport, you have to pay to get tested, and you have to be quarantined in a hotel of our choice for 3 to 5 days. So that is also keeping the borders very tight. So it's one of our solutions to the second wave that we don't want to experience. Now, I can see that we have already consumed a big part of our allotted time. So I'd like to have some discussion on how ASEAN can help ASEAN and how we can all sell probably to Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and China. And we can sell to each other. So maybe Manny and Victor, you have ideas for our online auctions, bringing our ACF auctions into the virtual world or into the virtual community. Manny, Victor, anybody?
To answer questions regarding the can ACF do the online auctions? In I think many years ago, I went to Panama and El Salvador. They did the online auctions. So what we do is you need to have a set of judges to cup all the coffees, all the flavor profile, and how is the score published online. And you need to have an online system to do the online auctions. So it's possible. If you're asking me, then I would say that it is possible since someone has already did that. And recently, the ACE, the COE also do the same thing. COE is doing something like selected country of origins to be cups in, example, Nicaragua cup in Japan. Then they will do the all the scoring, and they will do all the online sharing and auctions. So if you ask me, I think ACF, we can do that. It's just a matter of time and system that we need to create. And also our ACF cupping forms, we already designed our own cupping forms. We need to educate more about the cupping protocols in terms of our own ASEAN countries. And then so we can bring these so-called cupping sections or these options to out of ASEAN's level, maybe like ASEAN China, ASEAN Japan, ASEAN Korea. So this is, for me, this is possible.
Thank you, Victor. To all those listening, there's so many questions in the chat box, but one of them concerns Thailand and Myanmar. So if you would like to give us some light on why Thailand charges a high duty, Charon, what is the status of the duty of ASEAN countries getting into Thailand with their coffee? Charon?
When they're talking about the Thailand importing the green bean, I mean the question?
Yes. Yes.
For the ASEAN, currently it's only 5%. So it's not, yeah, only 5%.
For us, it's zero, right?
Zero.
Because they're saying that the borders are porous, so they just smuggle it to the border. So maybe you're not collecting your 5% after all.
Yes.
So this is just one of the questions in the chat box. And the other one is a question of what are the major bottlenecks you're currently observing in your respective value chains? Maybe Victor Ma, our president.
I just wanted to give you a bit of a roundup of what has been discussed so far and give you a bit of my own thoughts on it. With Indonesia, as Pak Shaif has mentioned, they have created a warehouse receipt system to finance their small farmers. The SCA has been involved in the discussions with Indonesia, in particular with Bank Indonesia, who is more or less the motivator or the mover behind this whole thing with the agricultural department. They are trying very hard to assist their SMEs there, which are mainly a lot of small farmers. That's one aspect which is a very good feature, I think. And of course, in Vietnam, with the government trying to assist farmers in getting a reduction in bank interest loans and all that, and trying to help them to improve their quality and moving into instant coffee. That I think is a great move. I think this is two good points which we should look at and encourage both Indonesia and Vietnam their governments to continue to do that. Otherwise, you know, we are not going to be producing coffee in this region anymore, right? At this present moment, we need to help all our farmers, not only talking about Vietnam and Indonesia, also Philippines, Myanmar, Thailand as well, right? These are the things which we should look at. If you're talking about bottlenecks, I think the main problem, I think which Chris will agree with me, is the logistics, right? The movement of coffee coming out of the countries. As he mentioned, there is a shortage of containers, but within ASEAN, we should really encourage this movement of flow. As Sharon has mentioned, Thailand is only, the import duty for ASEAN coffees is only 5%, right, for green beans. right? So we should seriously look at that. And we should also look at how we can promote within, maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but how we can promote the inter-ASEAN trade for coffee here. Victor Leong, you mentioned something about African coffees being very good, etc., etc. I think we should seriously, all of us, our participants especially, seriously look at some of the very, very, very good Arabicas which are coming out from, which Indonesia has, which has historically produced for many, many years, which are totally underrated. Likewise, also from Thailand and Myanmar, there's some very, very, very good Arabicas which are just as good or equal to what is coming out of Africa. It is a matter of giving our own farmers a chance by taking their coffee. I know some cafes in Singapore and Malaysia are already taking Thai and Myanmar. I think that's a very good step, right? I'm moving around a little bit here. As far as the present consumption pattern goes, my own personal observation from what I've seen doing my own personal shopping as well, going into many of the supermarkets and all that, I noticed the movement as Pak Shaif and Mr. Vin has mentioned, and Chit, you and Manny also, instant coffee, 3-in-1, is very much moving off the shelves. Also moving off the shelves are capsules, all right? And of course, the local coffee scene, the kopitiam coffees in Singapore, I know my members of the Coffee Association tell me that their sales have dropped tremendously, that their green coffee, Robusta coffee to their local roasters because of the what we call a circuit breaker here, right? So that's something which we hope in the next month or so, like in Malaysia, we will be able to overcome this as the market gradually opens up. Thanks, Chit.
Thank you, Victor. I think there's another comment in the chat box that says, we would like to try other origins in ASEAN, but sometimes their prices are more expensive than Ethiopians and Central Americas. Why is that so? Who would like to give this a try? Maybe somebody from the production side. May we ask Pak Siaf, are you more expensive than the Africans and Central Americans? Or Mio A, would you like to try answering this, why it's more expensive, if you are?
Currently, our average price of specialty coffee is around $4 to $6 per kg for green beans. So I think there's not the compared to other countries, not much higher than the other region. But the some depends on the cupping score and some differential values. Some are maybe around about $10 per kg, but the average is $4 to $6 is average per kg. Because we are producing the very selective process, because most of our processing is according to the international standard guided by the SCA or CQI with the support of USAID last 5 years ago. So our cupping quality is quite good. So I think $4 is not so much higher than other.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I think the price, what do you call this, of $4 to $6 is really not that high, because in the Philippines it's even higher than that, but it's consumed internally. So what we don't want is for farmers to go back to old practices, because if there are no takers and prices drop again, then they will go back to just selling to instant coffee manufacturers.
Exactly.
And we would have lost our specialty coffee industry.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, who wanted to say something?
Yeah, I can add. Chita, your questions, why our coffee, let's say the most of ASEAN countries.
Let's say Aceh
Coffee,
or,
yeah.
or
Indonesian's coffee more expensive than African coffee or Central American coffee.
yes, yes.
Simply say that Indonesian's coffee mostly produced by smallholder, individual farmers, which of course the production cost higher than production's cost in America Latin, which involved by say a bigger estate, or in America, and in Ethiopia or in Africa, they're now involved or managed by cooperative. But also don't forget, in Indonesia, also nowadays, coffee produced by cooperative, which the production's cost already decreased, and the prices, okay, still higher, but compatible. As Maya says, add by good productivity, good cupping score, and good logistics managed, then Indonesian coffee still counts as chosen by a buyer. But of course, again, I say the sector of produced by single origin or by small farmers, smallholder, is very important to be promoted. That's the higher price as a main factor on our coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Shaf. Now I'd like to ask Chris, as a representative of Ecom, do you think that ASEAN coffees are priced well enough to compete or to be considered by other buyers or roasters in the region?
Basically, I think that what Mio has mentioned earlier on, with Myanmar coffee pricing at about $4 to $5 per lot itself, I think that is a very reasonable price. Basically, we look at the freight cost. It's going to cost lesser than any other country coming in from Africa, as well as from Central Americas. But the most important thing, why Central America's, Latin America's country, as well as Africa's, are doing better in the specialty lots, I believe is because of their marketing, because of what they are promoting as a specialty. If ASEAN Coffee Federation are able to help all these smallholders to promote their coffee correctly, I'm sure the market will be able to accept what we call as a specialty coffee. Because most of the people that walk into, we take a Starbucks, for example, for Starbucks Reserve. What is really Starbucks Reserve? What they really know about it. But if what we are going to, if we are able to do the same things as promoting Asia coffee as nicely packaged, as a nice story, I'm sure we are able to sell it as a very good coffee throughout the world. Like Myanmar coffee right now, I'm sure you're doing very well into USA market. Why are you able to do it into USA market? There must be a demand for it. But from Thailand and Thailand market, one very, I would say critical side is, crucial side is because of the internet usage. Because people are not able to buy coffee willingly from them because of the quota system. They have to sell into Thailand before they are able to sell overseas. Correct me if I'm not wrong. This is what I look at it. But if we are able to have a very good marketing storyline telling people how good and what the farmers are doing for Asian coffee, I'm sure this will be a very good alternative from Latin America as well as from Africa.
Okay, so I gather that, thank you, Chris. I gather that marketing is the key, and for the ASEAN producers to come together and for ASEAN Coffee Federation to help all our producers not to lose hope, but to market to each other and to our neighbor China, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. I think we have a good thing going with all the producers here. So, Mr. Ma, do you agree with that potential for ACF to carry on this marketing effort, maybe videos, stories that, we don't have slavery here in Asia or something like that? I know that's a bit contentious, but I hope we don't have slavery in the farms. Mr. Ma?
Yep. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with Chris's comments about marketing and what you've also said, Chit. Marketing is a very, very important thing. The farmers in this region, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Myanmar, and even in the Philippines, they do have knowledge, but they do need that extra bit of how do I sell my coffee? How do I market it? How do I brand it? It's all about a story. And I think historically, in all our ASEAN countries, we've had a long history of producing coffee. It's now the next step is how do we do it? And we should do it first within ASEAN itself. I think we must support each other in that sense. Price factor wise, I think what Mayo I said about pricing is more or less accurate. Of course, there are certain lots which are maybe priced a little bit higher because of the way it's been harvested, the way it's been processed, which has, that's labor intensive, a lot of work on the fermentation method and all that. So you might have that issue there. Now, that's why in ASEAN, as we all know, and maybe the participants, the audience are not aware of, we have created an ASEAN coffee standard, which Victor and Manny and Shaf have been involved very much with, and which Victor spoke about. And of course, we also up the line, if you want to call that, we also have an ASEAN barista training programs, which are coming up very rapidly. Unfortunately, we're all a little bit held back by what's going on at the moment. Yeah. So I think what we need to do is really look at how we can market. We need to sell the story. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Victor. So I think more or less to summarize so far before we go to our last question, one is that everybody has felt already the effect of 70 to 80% drop in demand. At least we've heard from Vietnam, we've heard from Indonesia, the major producers, and that the drop is common among all producers. And then for the smaller producers like Myanmar, Philippines, and Thailand, I think that we need to look at the internal consumption and increasing that, while Vietnam is looking at selling, let's say, instant coffee to China. So what people are asking also is that, are there any policies towards cultivation and planting of higher cup quality varieties? Much as I'd like to have that question answered, I think I will have it for our next webinar. But for now, what we can do is for all the questions in the chat box to be gathered by our secretariat, and we will upload the recording of this webinar. Is that right, Stephen? We'll be uploading this, and with some answers to the other questions that our viewers post that we cannot, given the limited time, we cannot answer all of the questions, but it does give us, the questions give us an indication of the interest of producers, roasters, and buyers and cafe owners in the region. So I think it's ACF's turn now to do the marketing amongst us, as we have done the last so many years, albeit in a different way, because we have to go virtual, we have to go online auctions, we may have to wait until we can travel again, although Vietnam is already open for travel, I believe. Since this is just the first, I'd like to ask Mr. Ma again to please close the webinar, and we hope we see you again the next time. But Victor, please, a few last words from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chit. Thank you, all of you who have zoomed in onto this session. It's the first session we've had. I hope all of you have found it interesting and productive, and it has encouraged you to send us questions and to make you think more about ASEAN and ASEAN coffees, how we can help ourselves. Just, we must remember, ASEAN has to help ASEAN. Nobody is going to come and help us. We have to help ourselves. And that is what the ASEAN Coffee Federation here is duty to do, that is to help all the ASEAN countries, whether they are producing countries or consuming countries, to nurture and move forward our coffee community and coffee consumption and production to the best quality possible. Thank you all for listening, especially the panelists who've come on time. And thank you, audience. Really appreciate the number of you who have come in. Thank you. Stephen?